Hey everyone, my name is Kylie Deverell, and currently I work at a company called MailChimp. I am a pro customer support agent. Essentially what that means is I help a lot of our biggest clients manage our platform, learn how to use it better, get them the help that they need, get them going in the right direction, that kind of thing. And MailChimp is essentially a marketing automation company. So it's sending emails, it's creating ads, it's creating landing pages, things like that. Some of you may have heard of it. It is a fun company. We are a little bit crazy and quirky and I love it. And it's in the heart of Atlanta, which is really nice too. It's a great city and it's a lot of fun. So if I look down, it's because I'm looking at the questions we're meant to answer, so I apologize for that. So why I enrolled in this course, well, obviously it's a required course for me personally, so that's part of the reason, but also I think it'll be really interesting to learn a bit more about the entire history of the Holocaust and what happened, why it happened. Granted, I do know quite a bit about it already, but I always think that there's more to learn, especially with how much it entails, how many people were impacted by it, and how many families were impacted by it. And it's something that still really resonates with us today, even though it happened so many years ago. It's still quite fresh in a lot of our memories, and I think it's really important that we have people who are willing to study what happened and why it happened in order to help prevent it in the future. Especially as the years go on, a lot of those that survived are passing away, and once they're all gone, you know, it's up to us to continue to tell their stories and to preserve what happened, why it happened, and in order to help make sure it doesn't happen again. So I think that's really important. I think that's a big reason why I was interested in this course, but also in this program as well. The next question, Professor Rittner, you're very tricky. I see what you've done here. Is it the Holocaust, the Shoah, or the final solution that we're studying? And I say you're a tricky one here because the title of the course is the history of the Holocaust. So immediately your mind wants to jump to, we're studying the Holocaust. But you know, in doing more research and learning about the Holocaust, you know, that phrase didn't really come into play until after the Holocaust occurred, and its original meanings you know, are actually based around the word sacrifice, and because of that, it's not maybe the most accurate term to describe what happened during that time frame, because it most certainly was not a sacrifice in a positive sense, and I think, you know, there's a lot of negative connotation that can go around that. So knowing Professor Rittner's background and her history, I think it's more likely that we're studying the Shoah in general, because it is a more appropriate word for what happened, and it's a much less, I don't want to say derogatory term, but I guess you could look at it that way. And to me, it's the most appropriate word for what we're going to be studying, because the final solution, when I hear that to me is not any way to remember what happened to all the victims during this time period. It's, to me, the final solution is what the Germans wanted to carry out, what the Nazis wanted to carry out, what their plan was, what they were doing, why they were doing it, and all that falls in between there. So the final solution is really, I think, the most negative way to look at what happened. I think the Holocaust is the most generalized way to look at what happened, without really taking into account what the actual word itself means and its background. Whereas the Shoah, for all intents and purposes, is a much more appropriate term, and it's a much kinder, if it can be called that, term for what happened, and, you know, to explain that time period. So I think you can't really have one without the other. I think all three are important because you need to know their origins and why and where they all come from. But ultimately, I think as we move forward, you know, maybe it would be better that we look at it as the Shoah rather than the Holocaust, just to be mindful of that, and to be mindful of how the word the Holocaust can make people feel, versus Shoah, for instance. So I think it'll focus more on the Shoah. I just think that it's really hard for us to rewire our brains to say Shoah instead of Holocaust, especially when you're taught that from such a young age. But I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes and where that leads us. As far as considering this course a success, for me, that's really going to be, you know, maybe learning a bit more about the background of those words and phrases. I think that will be incredibly beneficial, especially for maybe other people in the class who don't already know what those backgrounds are and what those words and phrases mean specifically. So I think that will be interesting. I also think that it will help to fill those gaps of knowledge maybe that I'm missing, or maybe help me understand something that I've learned about briefly but don't know a ton about in general. And I ultimately just think that studying, taking this course, I think it's going to help me bridge a lot of gaps and give me a better idea of the overall scope of what happened and why it happened. A lot of times when I've taken, similar classes before, it's looked at certain aspects, but it's generally in relation to, World War II as a whole, or, the Nazis and Hitler as a whole. And I think, those parts are obviously important components of what happened and why, but I want to focus in on the Holocaust, the Shoah, whichever, phrasing that you use. I want to focus in on that specifically, and I think this will be a successful course if I'm able to do that, and if I'm able to walk away learning more than what I did before. So I probably rambled on a bit, and I apologize for that, but I really look forward to meeting all of you and speaking with you this semester, and hopefully we all walk away learning something from this. Take care.